UVM because it's a gavel.
I'm now calling the special town meeting of the town of Putney to order. Good evening, everybody. My name is Meg Mott. I'm the town moderator, and I am very excited to have another opportunity to moderate an amazing moment when a group of people, individuals wandering around the planet, come together and decide to deliberate, which means we are about to change ourselves from the substance of individuals to a deliberative assembly. This is a very short agenda, so I'm going to lay out just a couple little brief items before we get going. I'd like to invite, hearing no objections, Herve Pelletier to sit at the panel. And hearing no objections, I'd like to invite Lynn Borofsky to the table. These are two non-Putney voters. It appears that invitation is not going to be taken.
No, she's here.
Yep. So Lynn Borofsky is also invited to the table. Other than that, I'm assuming that people here are Putney residents and that you checked in with Anita or whoever was there. And before I read in the first motion, I just want everybody to know that what we are looking at is a legal instrument. So I hadn't ever done a town meeting in which one of the articles included a legal instrument, so I called the Secretary of State. And this purchase and sale agreement is arriving as it is to be discussed. That is to say, we cannot amend the purchase and sale agreement. It has been vetted by lawyers for the school board, lawyers for the town. So this is going to be a straight up and down vote. But however, we are going to have opportunities to ask questions about this before we go into the deliberation. So I'm going to begin. Article 1, shall the voters of the Putney Town School District approve the sale of the 164-acre forest land adjacent to the Putney Central School to the town of Putney for the sum of $10, according to the terms of the purchase and sale contract. Do we have a motion?
I move that the voters of the Putney Town School District approve the sale of the 164-acre forest land adjacent to the Putney Central School to the town of Putney for the sum of $10, according to the terms of the purchase and sale contract.
Do we have a second? Alan Blood. If, as we ask questions and then go into deliberation, if every voter would please stand. I don't think we have an extra mic, so you'll need to project your voice. But please stand and say your name, and then that will be noted. Does anybody have any questions about this article prior to the deliberation? Dan, in the back, your name?
Dan Morris. Our land abuts the Putney Central School Forest. I'm glad that we're all here tonight, but I'm curious, what was the legal way to tell people about this? I received a letter in my mailbox today about this vote. What is the warning process for the entire town of Putney to be involved in this vote tonight?
Somebody want to answer the question about what is the warning process?
So we warned
Louder.
the vote 30 days in
Stand up.
advance. We warned the vote 30 days in advance. It was in the newspaper. It was in 4 places around town. We had an informational meeting on October 24th at 6 o'clock. That was. And so we had an informational meeting on October 24th.
And that fulfilled the legal requirement, your obligation?
I believe so.
Okay. Oddly enough, I never heard of it.
Are you talking about, so we subdivided the land about, what, a year ago?
I think this is a question specifically
Oh,
about
sorry.
publication of the warrant.
Okay.
Application of the warrant.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, thank you.
Are there any other questions about Article 1? Yes, Matt, you could say your name.
Mac Jones, is this a permanent transfer or is this a so-called temporary transfer to the town?
The question was whether this transfer was permanent or whether it was a temporary transfer. This transfer is a temporary transfer. In the purchase and sale agreement, the period of time for the town to hold the land is up to 2 years. And during that time, a nonprofit organization will be formed that will ultimately own the land and oversee its management and conservation.
Follow?
What happens at the end of the 2 years?
The land will be under conservation easement and managed by a nonprofit organization.
So that is permanent.
That will be the permanent arrangement.
Would the town at any time deed the land back to the school?
Not according to this plan.
Any other questions before? Excuse me? If you want to come to the mic and make that, just say that whole little piece again, because it seemed like that was a very important question for people.
Is this better? Yes. Okay. So this arrangement is a temporary arrangement with the town. The purchase and sale contract specifies that this arrangement will occur over a period of 2 years. During that time, the board will establish a nonprofit organization that will work with the school and work with the town to oversee the management of the school forest. And during that 2 years, we will also secure a conservation easement on the school forest property with the intention of keeping wildlife corridors open and working with the abutters and other conservation efforts that are going on in areas surrounding the forest.
Ann?
Ann Vines, did I understand you to say that if... Can't hear you. Sorry. Did I understand you to say that if we vote yes on this, there is no opportunity for the school forest to return to the control of the Putney Central School?
Well, we need it back, sorry. Thank you, Alan.
Where's the sixth graders?
That's correct.
We had another hand over there.
Oh, the question was asking, just to confirm that the transfer of the school forest will not be coming back to the Putney Town School District, to the school itself.
Am I running it back over in the corner?
Could you just clarify whether with this change there would be any change in public access or use? Could you clarify or answer the question whether there would be any change in public access or public use with that transfer?
Does anybody need me to repeat the question? Okay. In the 2-year time period when the town will own the land, the use and the management of the school forest will defer back to the school, and it will be managed and used as it has been historically. There will be work done to secure a conservation easement, and that easement will dictate some use in some areas, I'm sure, but I don't know yet what those uses will be. The nonprofit organization will be made up of a board of individuals from different fields related to forest ecology, naturalists, scientists, educators, board members, administrators, town officials, state officials. All of these, this collection of people are listed in our bylaws as people who would be sought out for serving on this not-for-profit board. And so they will make their management decisions according to the school forest mission and work in accordance with the Putney Central School for making long-term decisions regarding the forest. Does that answer your question? So we have other questions. Do you have a question about a specific use?
Just public access. There's open public access for walking on the trails, and is that still?
That should not
That
change.
shouldn't change?
I don't anticipate that to change at all.
Thank you.
We have a question over here.
I'm Jim Oliver. I'm just looking at number 6 in the purchase and sale contract that was passed out, and I think this answers some of these questions. The last sentence says, and I have a question about this.
Do you mind identifying yourself?
I did, Jim Oliver. It says, after which time, after the 2 years, the town shall deed the property to a non-profit corporation formed by the members of the Putney Town School Board. To ensure the proper use and conservation of this land with input from the select board and community. So my question is, so the process is, first it gets deeded to the town, and then by the end of 2 years, sometime by the end of 2 years, it gets deeded by the town to a non-profit corporation formed by members of the Putney Town School Board. And I guess my question is, we're voting, I think in order to change the ownership of the property, it would be necessary to have another vote like this one. And is that the case? In other words, I don't think the town could simply transfer the land to a not-for-profit without there being some other action, which would obviously be a time when the people in town could register their questions and interests, their concerns, and get answers. Is that right, or does this just kind of, once this vote happens, does it just all happen without any further input from anyone who vote?
Do you want to answer that? I mean, this is somewhat of a legal question now in terms of this provision of the purchase and sale.
So it does not, we pursued that question with the lawyers on both sides, and it does not. It does not need to come to another vote, and in fact, this doesn't need to come to a vote. But we chose to bring it to a vote because we thought you would want to participate in the consideration. It does say in the purchase and sale agreement, though, that you want to read that part, that we would, I think it's in 6. Oh. That the process of forming the nonprofit and the bylaws, which we've just sketched out a draft, but the nonprofit would create the bylaws. All of this would be done after a pretty significant process with townspeople and others, school board and the select board.
Other questions?
It looks like my name is Carolyn Oliver, and it looks like if we are depending on our school board to carry this forward in 2 years. We all know the other questions involved about whether we will even have a school board. So isn't there some real vagueness built into the structure here without a school board? Perhaps, who knows, in 2 years. Shouldn't there be more specificity designed into the system so that all of us in town know that our concern for our children and the community, that our concern is preserved and we can move forward in a way that's structured, but perhaps with or without a school board, because we don't know about that.
Thanks for your question. The Putney Town School Board will be active through June 30th, 2019. So even if a merger vote goes up, the unified board will begin their work to develop the new district, but the Putney Town School Board will remain active and governing Putney Central School until July 1st, 2019.
Do you have another question?
Benji Cragen. I'm just wondering, you guys are recommending this because I'm assuming that your concern is if we go to a unified district, that we will have even less control over the forest. I'm assuming that this is why this is happening.
That's why this is happening right now.
Right, but you think, your thought is this is going to be the best governance for the school forest that will give the Putney townspeople the most input on it. That's what I'm assuming that that's what your recommendation is.
So we can start to deliberate at any moment, because at that point, we will also have opportunities to state our either objections to Article 1 or our support for Article 1. So unless somebody actually has a point of information they're trying to answer, and I have a hand in the back.
Please wait for the mic.
The Conservation Commission is in support of this because of the conservation easement which will be put on the land and then continued more local control. But my question is, can two parties to a contract mutually agree to change the contract in the future? That's a legal one. I don't know if we have a lawyer in the house.
Does somebody want to answer that question?
We can, and I imagine at that point we would probably come back to you, although I don't think we would be required to come back to you.
So I'm beginning to feel the urge that we could start to move towards deliberation, unless somebody has a specific question they need answered. I got one more hand in the back.
Maggie Cassidy. It sounds as though there are two underlying concerns. One is about public use of the continued public use of the land through this transition period into the new ownership in 2 years. And maybe another is about continued use by the school. I know that the school, different classes use the forest in various ways. And the public use, you said you don't anticipate that changing. Is that also true of the use by children at the school?
Somebody want to answer that?
So to answer your question, we don't see, the change we see happening for the use of the school is one where more educational programming could be an option for the students at Putney Central School. We don't anticipate any change in access from the public to the school forest. There's a school forest mission that was approved by the school board last May, and it's a hard copy of it is sitting at the door, so if you haven't read the school forest mission yet, you can feel free to grab one on your way out or right now. The school forest mission very clearly lays out that the forest is a dedicated educational resource, but that resource is extended to all members of the community. And this nonprofit organization will be charged with maintaining that forest as an educational resource and be responsible for its conservation. So whoever's sitting on that board 50, 100 years from now will still have that school forest mission as their guiding mission, so that the forest is always open for the children of Putney Central School and surrounding schools and educational institutions and the members of the community.
So I'm going to start to move towards deliberation. If during the deliberation somebody has a question, you can always say point of information, and we can go back to the questions. Do you have a question, a point of information first?
Point
Okay.
of information.
And also, if people are coming in through the other door, just please make sure that you've checked in with Anita, because that way we're able to maintain that these are Putney residents who are voting.
Hello, my name's Lon Moses. When I attended the informational meeting about a week ago, what I learned was that this process was undertaken for a couple of years, that it's not simply that the Act 46 is pushing this forward, but that the board very rightly has plenty to do without being a land management agency. So, you know, I learned that this is a very sensible thing to let the school board have as its mission very much school-related items, and have the land managed by a conservation agency, and that this was a goal having nothing to do but being pressured by the limitations around Act 46, but that this was a goal, if I'm not mistaken, that the board had regardless of Act 46. So that was important.
So I'm actually going to read that as in support of Article 1, which means we have now officially moved into deliberation. Is there somebody who wishes to speak against Article 1? Anybody wish to raise a hypothetical objection, just in order to actually be thinking about this? Possible objection to Article 1.
I'm Honey Loring, and this is actually a point of information, but I would like to know if you can write into this agreement that public access will be as much a part of it as the kids' access to it. So that makes a big difference to me.
So we're not actually able to change the purchase and sale agreement, but is there somebody who wishes to speak to the idea of public access? Because that seems to be something that people are having some difficulty with.
When the school board first presented the school forest mission a year ago this fall, we held a town meeting, a town forum, and took feedback about the school forest mission, and the public access use was part of that feedback. And we took that and added that piece into the mission. And the purchase and sale agreement is contingent upon the mission. The mission statement is in the purchase and sale agreement. And so you will find that it is open to all members of the community in the mission, which is also in the purchase and sale agreement.
Thank you. Sure. Is there anybody who wishes to speak against Article 1? With a hand in the back.
What I have to say, my name is Sarah Cooper Owens. My concern on hearing that there will be a new entity formed, a new management committee. We don't know who, we don't, have sat on a board or two. Some of them worked after a time. Some of them never did. And the mission statement is a mission statement that can't be particularly interpreted as a management tool. It's got some, very nice general language. Will there be dogs? Will there not be dogs? This kind of thing. Lots of open questions come up for me about who we're giving this land to.
Is there somebody who wishes to speak in favor of Article 1?
Alan Blood, it seems to me that this actually protects the forest whether or not this merger takes place. We don't know who our school board members will be in 3 years locally either. We don't know what their attitude will be toward the school forest. They might decide to log it. We have no way to stop them from doing that at this point. Having a conservation easement on it and all sorts of language that these wonderful people have developed in the last year or two helps protect the forest whether or not it stays in as part of the school or whether or not it goes to this nonprofit organization. So I'm strongly in favor of this.
Is there somebody who wishes to speak against Article 1?
Speak with reservation. All right. I'm not opposed to a conservation easement in any form. The thing that gives me hesitation is creating another entity that's farther removed yet from the people of Putney, the children of the school, the staff, and that the decision-making is getting farther and farther from the people that are directly affected by it. And as a model, I find that just makes me a little uncomfortable. I would prefer that there be a pursuit of a conservation easement and that there be protection. But I would rather see it stay closer to the town and the school, because I was part of the School Forest Committee. I started the program that was implemented after school. And I found that the interests of the children, the teachers, the parents, the citizens of the town were not always in agreement. It was kind of complex, trying to meet everybody's needs. And I just feel like the farther that gets away from the people who are directly involved, the harder it is to be responsive to that. So I would make a distinction between conserving the land and creating another entity that's more removed from us to administer it, and that we have evidently no recourse toward once we vote yes.
Somebody like to speak in favor of Article 1? In favor? In favor? Yeah.
Joan Wells, I just would like to ask Anne a question concerning you. Why does she think this is removing it further away? I don't understand.
I guess it seems sort of clear to me, so I guess maybe I don't understand the question really. But let me try to say that the closer the people who are implementing a program are to the decisions that are made about the program, usually the more effective it is. If you're working directly with kids, you would rather be making the decisions as much as you can about the children you know best, rather than having another organization tell you how to do it. Does that make it any clearer? No, it doesn't. Anybody else speak to this?
So I'm going to take somebody who wishes to speak in favor, because I heard that as an objection. In favor?
Actually, this might be a question for information regarding what you're talking about. Is there anything in, I know that this nonprofit has not been established yet, but you said, somebody said something about the makeup of it. Like, is there anything like the Putney, oh, I'm sorry, Jorica Stockwell. I forget. Is there anything that says a certain percentage need to be Putney residents, or a certain percentage need to be PCS staff, or is there anything like that?
We'll take that up for you.
Thanks for the question. We don't have it sorted out according to percentages yet, but the PCS faculty, staff, I think it was even mentioned that students could be involved, the select board, town manager, conservation commission. These are all the offices and professionals we'd like to have on this board. So our intention behind planning it out that way was to keep the management as close to the school as possible. And we'll be working with our bylaws in more detail going forward, and ensuring that the charge of the nonprofit is closely aligned with what the school wishes for the use for the children.
So somebody want to speak in favor of Article 1? I took that as a point of information, and so now we're back to in favor.
Penelope Cincinnati. Has there been any consideration, I'm just knowing that nonprofits take more people and more energy, and we have a lot of nonprofits. Has there been consideration of the Putney Mountain Association and having a subcommittee? Okay, because I think it seems kind of a no-brainer to me on that one.
So I'm taking that as a question. Does anybody want to answer it?
So as Alan Blood had mentioned just a few minutes ago, these conversations have been going on for a few years. So we've talked with some folks from Putney Mountain Association, we've talked with the Vermont Land Trust, we've talked with the Conservation Commission, and these are all people we're pulling in for these management discussions. And this is why we've put a 2-year time on the transfer, because we know these conversations are going to take some time, and we want to do it very thoughtfully. And our intention is to maintain as much conserved abutting land as possible, and trying to figure out which way it makes most sense to do that.
So I'm taking that one as a question again. Is there somebody who wishes to speak in favor of Article 1?
I've got people on the floor that don't live in Putney, and they need to be out in the hall.
Anybody who's not a resident of Putney, you must leave unless you've been invited to the podium here. So because we have no blue tape, in order to distinguish, if you are not a resident of Putney, then we are asking you to please leave so that your vote does not skew our results. Is there somebody who wishes to speak in favor of Article 1?
Yes, I'm Lionel Chutes, and I think it's very important that this be voted up today because there is an urgency. It's the vote coming up in 5 days, and if for some reason Act 46 passes the 4 towns, then unless this happens today, unless the property is transferred, the property becomes another asset of a larger school district, of which Putney would not have a majority vote. And so there's a real risk that Putney would lose control of the forest permanently. And that was really the impetus behind the timing of this. There is an urgency. But as was pointed out earlier, even if the vote were voted down, if the larger school district doesn't form in 5 days, then again, this was the product of several years of careful thought and work, and it will only secure the relationships that everyone has to the forest in a much stronger and clearer way. And the bylaws do stipulate, as was pointed out, the adherence to the documents that spell out the importance of the forest to the town and to the students, the educational value, and even the particular agencies, the town agencies, including the school, that would stay connected, would actually serve on the board of the 501c3 to ensure that the forest continues to be managed in the way that best suits the town. So I think it's, I'm very much in favor.
Somebody like to speak against Article 1, and this is specifically about this purchase and sale agreement.
Thank you. I'm Doug Grant. I'm relatively new here, but I took a walk in the forest not too long ago. And my question maybe should have been before this part, but the answer would inform me whether I'm for or against, probably for. But the question is, there are some trails that look like they're, I don't know what you call them, cross-country bike trails that go straight down the hill. I mean, you're walking this way and the trail goes that way. And it occurred to me that there could be some erosion, and I'm not an expert in that, but if somebody's making a decision to shut those down because of erosion, perhaps those people should be local people. And so your question prompted me to raise this at this point. So is there any consideration for those bike trails? Maybe it was my imagination.
Somebody want to speak to the current management?
There's some erosion in the school forest, to be sure. And that'll be something that we look at when we get in there and really take inventory of what the condition of the forest is like right now. We want to anticipate what the forest will be like 20 years down the road, and that will be looking at the effects from erosion. It'll be looking at invasive species. It'll look at climate change. And without having developed that plan yet, it's hard to say what will specifically happen to those eroded trails, but it's on our radar and our radar, and it'll need to be addressed at some point.
But not somebody from the outside. Answer her question.
Well, we have some local foresters that we get input from. Is that inside? Okay. I think they're coming from the inside.
Not some body up there.
Yeah, no, they don't come from. I think that'll satisfy.
So does somebody want to speak against Article 1? I took that as a question. That makes me think we may be moving to a vote. So, we have one other question up here.
If the vote passes, and I'm in
Wait,
favor of...
please wait for the mic.
Hi folks, Dan Morris here. Ramona Lawrence is here, who was Putney Person of the Year a few years ago, Putney resident. She has worked with the children for years. And if this passes, this is Ramona's donation to pay for the sale of the land. Let's do it.
Okay, it appears as if the town of Putney is ready to vote.
And we have the money to pay for it, too.
So,
I just want to, who took my agenda? Here it is. I'm just going to,
Hey, Meg.
just to remind us all, yes.
I'm sorry, can I just ask one quick question? Sorry, Benji Craigan, I just wanted to make sure, so if this didn't happen now and we voted no, there's no way that...
Voted no one.
Or they voted yes. If we vote yes in 5 days, there's no way that we could do this vote later. It has to happen before the vote. That's when everything gets transferred over. Okay, sorry, thank you.
So, town of Putney, are we ready to vote on Article 1? All right. I'm going to read it one more time. Article 1, shall the voters of the Putney Town School District approve the sale of 164-acre forest land adjacent to the Putney Central School to the town of Putney for the sum of $10 according to the terms of the purchase and sale contract. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please indicate by saying nay. Nay. It appears that the ayes have it. The ayes have it, and the article passes. The last article is Article 2, to transact any other school business that may legally come before the meeting. We do not need a second on that. It appears, therefore, may I have a motion to adjourn? Do we have a second? All those in favor of adjourning, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. It appears that we have adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.